Okay, thanks for including the paper in the program. As you can see, so today I try to connect the logic programs we see in practice to corporate finance. So in this presentation, I will use LP to represent logic programs rather than the limited partners that we usually see. Okay, so LPs are everywhere in our life and are most prevalent in sectors like retail, travel and hospitality, and financial services. And economists have offered several explanations for the emergence of LPs: behavioral benefits, price discrimination, switching costs, agency conflicts. And this is pretty much how I viewed LPs until I saw this. So on the liability side of United Airlines, there are terms called frequent flyer deferred revenue. And they represent the value of miles awarded to consumers. So in general, when a firm issues rewards like miles to consumers, they usually receive advance payments or some other benefits, which boosts the firm's present cash flows. And later, consumers will redeem the rewards for the firm's services, which will reduce the firm's future cash flows. And these shifts in the firm's present and future cash flows constitute de facto borrowings from consumers. And recently, the finance behind LPs have gained more and more attention. So in DOT's view, so airline rewards programs may have developed a financial significance that rivals or even outweighs the operation of flights, and may have become a very meaningful part of many Americans' life. So the goal of this paper is to uncover this finance behind LPs. So I will first present 3 facts about the importance, mechanics, and features of this role. You're going to see these facts very quickly, so I just skip here. I will argue that these facts lend support to the financing role of LPs. Then based on these facts, I built a model of LP financing. And the key mechanism of the model is that rewards are convenient for consumers. By convenience, I mean there's no restriction on redemption timing, which makes the rewards kind of similar to demand deposits. And because of this convenience, consumers would like to discount rewards at a lower rate than they would for typical investment. And this is the source of gains from trade. However, what is also inherent in this convenience is that firms lose its direct control of the risk funds. So now the risk funds emerge endogenously as a result of the interplay between issuance and redemption. Okay, so we need to solve it. And to find that, the effectiveness of LP financing hinges a lot on the issuance policy and the characteristics of the firm's business, which is we don't see for the typical debt or equity financing. And also, LP financing has special cyclical nature. So around the financing role of LPs, the paper mainly addresses 2 questions. So first, what firms should do LP financing? Turn out it should be firms supplying high-value, low-frequency services and firms with a highly volatile business. And second, how can firms use LP financing more effectively? They should weaken the linkage of reward issuance to the business. And they should not allow consumers to freely purchase rewards from the firm or consumers, or other consumers. So the paper is related to the large literature that tries to rationalize LPs and examine the optimal decisions in the context of LPs. And this paper proposes a new finance perspective. And on the finance side, the paper is related to the growing literature on raising funds from stakeholders, like crowdfunding tokens, raises funds from users or consumers, trade credit from suppliers, inside debt from executives or employees. And what distinguishes this paper from them is that it considers convenience as the central mechanism of raising funds from consumers. Okay, let's look at the 3 facts. Okay. So since 2018, firms are required to use the deferred revenue method to estimate their LP liabilities. So this method recognizes the liability for advance payments received for services to be delivered later. Okay. So let's just take airlines as an example. So we're estimating the selling price of miles. So they use the equivalent ticket value of the miles. So we're estimating the quantity of the miles. They consider breakage because they know that not all miles will be redeemed in the future. The data that I use here are mainly from the firm's 10K reports and also the big 3 airlines 8K reports during COVID. So in 2018, the total LP liabilities were $30 billion for US airlines and $10 billion for publicly listed hotel chains. And to put the numbers in perspective, they amounted to 30% of total debt financings for firms in the 2 industries. And you may wonder how these firms accumulated such a large balance of LP liabilities. Okay, let's take Delta's LP SkyMiles as an example. So every time a consumer flies with Delta and chooses to earn Delta miles, so Delta's operation department purchases miles from SkyMiles. And this accounts for 32% of SkyMiles cash flows. And the other 68% are largely due to sales to Amex, which is Delta's partner bank. So Amex issues a collection of co-branded credit cards with Delta. So every time a consumer signs up for or charges consumption to the co-branded credit cards, Amex needs to purchase miles from SkyMiles. And Delta provided a more detailed breakdown over time. So sales to Amex has been the largest source and increasingly important. And another noteworthy observation is that sales to consumers are tiny. And this is not surprising. So airlines and hotels, they do sell rewards to consumers, but usually at a significant premium rather than a discount. So this pricing strategy plus this small quantity imply that firms do not intend to systematically issue rewards to consumers through direct sales. And this is factor 1. So regarding co-branded credit cards, perhaps surprisingly, consumers use them extensively for all kinds of consumption. So in 2019, the consumption charged to Delta's co-branded credit cards exceeded $100 billion. And meanwhile, Delta's revenues were close to like $50 billion. So the consumption charged to the card is much higher than Delta's revenue. So that means these cards are used for much broader consumption than just the services provided by Delta. And actually, US airlines describe this issuance through broader consumption as a key strength of their LP. So they deliberately build this partner network and allow consumers to earn rewards on hotel stays, car rental, even shopping and dining, and many of which are not particularly related to the travel business. So in economics, so issuing rewards through broader consumption, but not through direct sales, is not suggested by these classical theories on LPs, but it can be well explained by the finance theory. And regarding redemption, so around 95% of airline miles are redeemed for air travel. And United further disclosed that it provides most of the services that these miles are redeemed for. Okay, this is factor 2. So it says that rewards are basically issued through broader consumption, but are redeemed predominantly for consumption related to the issuing firm. And that means for firms with highly volatile business, like travel-related firms, issuance will be less volatile than redemption. That means in the bad times of the firm's business, firms can naturally raise more funds from consumers since issuance exceeds redemption. So LPs can help smooth firms' cash flows through this financing channel. So let's look at some direct evidence. So this figure shows the time series of redemption and issuance of miles scaled by airlines' revenue in the same year from 2018 to 2022. It's around COVID, okay? I know you probably don't say it clearly, but trust me, this scale redemption is pretty stable over time, which means the redemption of miles closely follows the overall airline business. But the scaled issuance experienced a spike in 2020. And this spike is particularly pronounced for the first several airlines, which are those with with large scaled LP liabilities. And the logic here is that firms that issue rewards in more diverse ways tend to have greater LP liabilities compared to their business. And the issuance of their miles are less correlated with their business. And as a result of this divergence between issuance and redemption, we saw a dramatic increase in LP liabilities for these airlines. And similarly, Marriott and Hilton, which have the largest scaled LP liabilities among hotel chains, also saw a dramatic increase in 2020. And we can run regressions, and the result shows, okay, this increase is significant statistically. And finally, you may wonder, so how the industry views these observations. Do they know and do they care? So here's how Delta describes the strengths of its LP. So SkyMiles offers significant diversity of cash flows with a long-term track record of stable and growing performance through cycles. Okay, so brief recap of the three facts. So first, LPs serve as significant financing sources for airlines and hotels, with co-branded credit card programs contributing much and sales directly to consumers little. And second, rewards are issued through broader consumption, but are redeemed predominantly for consumption related to the issuing firm. And third, LP financing can help smooth firms' cash flows. So next, we move on to the model. Okay. So I consider an infinite horizon continuous time game, and the consumers and the firm are the main players. Banks play minor roles in the model. And the players are risk neutral. The return of investment is R0, and there's no tax. Consumers are infinitesimal and homogeneous, with total mass being 1. And each consumer stochastically needs a service at the rate of Q0. Okay. And when they need a service, this service is worth P0 to him. Okay. And in addition to this service, consumers also consume other things. And the consumer's total consumption is exogenous and completely smoothed out by assumption. So the firm monopolizes the supply of the service. And due to the lack of competition, it directly sets the price of service to consumers' willingness to pay, which is P0. Then without a logic program, the firm's cash flows equals the total demand minus a constant operating expenses. And there's a competitive credit card market in the background. So banks issue bank credit cards to consumers and earn phi of the consumption as interchange fees. And these banks act competitively and offer consumers cash back as much as the fees that they earn. The firm can choose to set up a loyalty program and issue rewards. The rewards are convenient in the sense that consumers can purchase a service with any combination of cash and rewards whenever they want. And assume that because of this convenience, consumers do not discount the future redemption value of rewards. And this is against gains from trade in the model. Okay. But I'm open to other sources of gains from trade. However, the rewards are still less liquid than cash because they can only be redeemed for this particular service. So consumers weakly prefer holding cash to holding rewards. Then redeeming rewards involves a little bit cumbersome procedure than directly using cash. So each redemption incurs a small cost, epsilon. And assume constant valuation of rewards. So that is one reward is always worth 1 over P0 of one service. And motivated by factor 1, I consider two types of LPs. The consumption-based LP, or CLP. Purchase-based LP, or PLP. And for the time being, I will assume that the firm does not directly sell rewards to consumers, and there's no transaction of rewards between consumers. And later we're going to see that this is optimal. So under CLP, a firm issues a co-branded credit cards with a bank. So the bank buys rewards from the firm and offers them to consumers instead of the cashback. And firms receive all the fees earned by the bank from these co-branded credit cards. And the co-branded credit card is determined by two parameters: the scope of the reward category gamma and the reward rate AC. So the firm classifies a fraction gamma of the consumption as a reward category and offers AC rewards for each dollar of consumption in the reward category and zero otherwise. Just take Delta Gold card as an example. These categories like Delta purchases, styling, and groceries, they are reward categories. And consumers can get 2 miles per dollar for these categories. So under a PLP, the firm offers a consumer an option to buy Pi rewards at the unit price of theta B for each dollar spent on services. But in practice, it's more common to see that the firm requires consumers to buy the rewards through bundling. For example, an air ticket is essentially a bundle of a flight and some miles. But it's just here, offering an option and bundling are equivalent. It turns out that given the type of the LP, CLP or PLP, an LP is completely determined by two parameters. One is the issuance rate of rewards, and the other is the unit price of rewards. And there's a one-to-one mapping between the two objects and objects directly controlled by the firm. So I will consider that the firm can choose to adopt one of the two types, and the LP is static. That means once chosen, the LP does not change over time. And I will focus on the steady state under a LP. That is, each consumer's decision maximizes his expected average payout flow, and the distribution of consumers' reward holdings stays unchanged over time. So before we delve into the model solution, I want to share how I think LP financing differs from other financings. So in general, effective financing should allow firms to raise sufficient funds at low cost. So typically, that stipulates a fixed repayment schedule. So it does not cater to investors' liquidity demand. So there's no convenience yield. The required returns are high. But with this fixed repayment schedule, the firm can directly control the raised funds. On the contrary, LP financing and demand deposit, they let financiers control redemption. So they provide liquidity. So we see a convenience yield, and the required returns are lower than the debt. But the cost is that now the firm loses direct control of the raised funds because they emerge endogenously as an interplay between issuance and the redemption. And regarding the difference between LP financing and the demand deposits, so for LP financing, the issuance is controlled by the firm. And the redemption is determined by the consumption of this particular service supplied by the firm. Then there are two natural questions. First, how should firms issue rewards? And how does the nature of this service affect financing? But these two questions are not so relevant to demand deposits, because for demand deposits, the issuance and redemption, they are exogenously determined by consumers' total income and the total consumption. And the paper mainly addresses these two questions. So in equilibrium, consumers' behavior is pretty simple. So they redeem P0 rewards for surveys when he needs a surveys and have at least the P0 rewards, but do not redeem rewards otherwise. So intuitively, they do not redeem partially because of this redemption cost. And they do not deliberately hoard rewards because they prefer holding cash. And since consumers do not redeem rewards immediately after earning them. So they will have a positive reward holdings. And let B be the reward balance of all consumers, which will be constant in the steady state. Then B theta is the actual money that firm receives in advance from consumers. Then the firm's cash flows under the LP differs from those under no LP in two ways. So first, with this B theta cash, firm can earn interest income or reduce interest expenses. And second, since the rewards are issued at a discount, so the firm's sales are lower by A times 1 minus theta. Okay. And here A theta are directly chosen by the firm, but B emerges endogenously. And determine B is kind of the most technical part of this paper. Let's try to give some intuition here. Okay. So under a CLP, so the B equals half of P0 plus lambda. So the half of P0 stems from that consumers do not redeem partially. So let's think about the case that consumers always need the services. Then consumers' reward holdings follows a cycle as shown in the left panel. So starting from 0, the consumers constantly earn rewards up to P0. Then consumers redeem the P0 rewards, so it goes back to 0. So in this case, the average reward holding is half of P0, right? However, consumers do not always need the service. So that gives rise to this lambda part. And this lambda is determined by this equation, and I call it over accumulation. Okay. And under PLP, the consumer's reward holdings change only when he buys a service. So at those points, if the consumer holds fewer than P0 rewards, he will just pay cash and earn P0 pi rewards. But if he holds at least the P0 rewards, he will redeem P0 rewards. So let's just think about two cases. So if 1 over pi is an integer, okay, then the reward holding follows a cycle as shown in the left panel. So starting from 0, then the consumer will pay for the next 3 purchases, because here 1 over pi is 3. Pay for the next 3 purchases with cash, and his reward holdings reach P0. Then for the next purchase, he will redeem rewards. Then it's go back to 0. Okay, then, so the average holding would be half of P0. Okay. However, if 1 over pi is not an integer, let's say it's a rational number, 1 over pi is 1.5, then his reward holding could be greater than P0. In this case, he will, starting from 0, he will pay for the next 2 purchases with cash, and his reward holdings reach 4/3 of P0. The reason that there's overaccumulation is that the reward earning is lumpy. And in general, consumers are uniformly distributed over a set, which is indexed by mu. Okay? We can determine mu exactly, and the reward balance depends on mu in this way. So the reward balance is greater than half of P0 because consumers do not redeem partially. But it could be greater than half of P0 because reward earning is lumpy. Okay. So next, we look at the implications of the model. So first, the reward balance is greater if the value of service is higher and the frequency is lower. And this prediction kind of aligns with the practice pretty well. So I just show the deferred revenue, which is a balance, and the deferred revenue, which is the flow of the LP liabilities for some firms. You can see that as the value of the service decreases or the frequency increases, this balance to flow ratio decreases. Yeah. So the implication is that firms supplying high-value, low-frequency services can leverage LPs more effectively for financing. And this explains why airlines and hotels are eager to develop these programs. And second, so a CLP can result in a greater reward balance than PLP. The simple intuition is that under CLP, there's an asynchrony between issuance and redemption. So consumers still earn rewards even they do not need the service. Okay? But this asynchrony is missing under PLP because both issuance and redemption are linked to purchases. And the implication is that the firm should weaken the linkage of reward issuance to the firm's business. And this is consistent with factor 2 that rewards are issued through broad consumption. And third, firms should not allow consumers to freely purchase rewards from the firm or other consumers. The intuition is that since consumers prefer holding cash, so if you give them extra flexibility, they're going to use the flexibility to accelerate the redemption of rewards, which will reduce the reward balance. Okay. So last, I want to examine the signature of LP financing. Okay. So I will refer to the baseline setup as a normal state. And suppose that the firm holds a liquidity buffer in this normal state. So now let's consider that the firm unexpectedly enters an adverse state. And in this state, some consumers do not need the service. And because of the decrease in demand for service, the firm's cash flows becomes negative. And so the firm needs to consume the liquidity buffer to sustain the business. And the firm goes bankrupt if the liquidity buffer is depleted. Okay. Just to keep things simple, I will assume this. So first, the firm cannot change operating expenses or the LP. And second, the firm cannot issue new debt, although the firm can always roll over the old debt. And the consumer's behavior does not change. And it turns out that the LPs render the firm's cash flows less volatile through two mechanisms. So first, the financing cost of LP financing, which is a total discount on rewards, is smaller in bad times. Because the total discount is proportional to redemption rewards. So in bad times, there are fewer redemptions, so the cost is lower. Okay. So in this sense, LP is a de facto revenue sharing agreement between the firm and consumers. So when revenue is lower, this shared revenue is also lower. And the second mechanism is that since the issuance does not decrease as much as redemption under CLP, so the reward balance is greater in bad times. And this is a third factor that we saw before. Okay. The implication here is that so LP financing is especially attractive to firms with highly volatile business. So that's why airlines and hotels are eager to develop these programs. And firms should weaken the correlation between reward issuance and the firm's business, since the second mechanism applies only to the CLP. Okay. And this is again consistent with the second effect that rewards are issued through broad consumption. Okay, finally, okay. I think these rewards and more broadly tokens has been a meaningful part of many Americans' life and merits serious analysis. So this paper basically takes a corporate finance perspective. And the flip side of the story is actually the household finance. Okay. Thank you.